Hey y'all, how's it going? Welcome back. It is time to discuss Miss Marvel episode 5. We are discussing all the spoilers, and aren't I just some kind of magical Marvel genie who can see into the future of every single Marvel Studios project? Because what did I say? MCU series always hands down produce the best penultimate episodes I've probably ever seen in the history of television. And this one, without a doubt, is right there with all those other penultimate episodes that I love. But because I am the genie, because I can see in the magic ball, I am starting to get a little iffy about where Miss Marvel is heading, and I didn't want to feel this way because this so far has just been consistently great, back to back to back to back, and I could just see it in this episode, y'all. The writing was on the wall that Marvel was about to step in and mess everything up for the last episode. It's like having a party or something, and all of a sudden Marvel bursts in the room and they're like, this is our property now. We're gonna take it over. Let me clarify myself, because one, I really love this episode, and I will talk about why I loved it, but let me just fill y'all in on kind of what I'm sensing is going on here. So I'm going to skip to the very end of this episode, right? The part where we're back in New Jersey, and Cameron goes to visit Bruno, and Cameron's got these weird powers, and he's kind of freaked out and seeking Bruno for help. Fast forward. Then this drone is, coming through the window and kaboom, blows up the entire Circle Q or whatever, Now, when I saw that scene, I was like, Marvel, why you gotta go and do this? Because for the entire episode, we had a wonderful conclusion to so many arcs. I would say pretty much everything to like 90%. Everything that we have kind of worked our way up to so far has gotten resolved in this episode, in episode 5. And while I was watching this, I was like, okay, did I make a mistake? Like, are there only 5 episodes in Miss Marvel? Like, is there not going to be a 6th episode? Because everything just felt so final, especially when Cameron's mother died. I was like, this feels like a season finale. Did anyone else feel that way? Like, did I just get pranked? Is this the actual last episode? And I was certainly content. I was like, if this is it, wow, they're really leaving on a great note. And then I went and Googled it, and I was like, no, there's still 6 episodes. There's still one more coming out. And I was like, oh. And so what gets me is that we closed out the whole clandestine arc. At least I'm assuming that scene of that. That was pretty much they were the biggest antagonists in this entire series. And so I was like, well, that's perfect. We closed up their story. That'll be that. And now it seems like they're going to try to dedicate basically all of episode 6 to the Department of Damage Control. And to me, that's strange because this entire series, the Department of Damage Control has always just seemed like a shadow. Like, they would just kind of come in and come out, and, Kamala's like, I have bigger fish to fry, so you guys are barely an issue. And to me, they were in it just enough. I never thought it was too much. I never thought it was too little. And now I'm like, okay, in episode 6 we're supposed to have an epic showdown just because they need to check off those boxes. To me, it just seems very unproportional to dedicate, at least I'm assuming, a whole final episode to a plot or to an arc that has so far just been so minimal and so insignificant. To me, it's like, I can kind of hear some of the counter criticism, like, well, duh, it's a superhero TV show, you're supposed to have these things. Like my first biggest disappointment was WandaVision, because we had this emotional episode, they built it up that way, and then it seemed like all of a sudden we took this complete left turn, and now they're having, big sky battles shooting energy at one another. And I was like, but how did we get to this point? We were just kind of building up nice and slow, and then we completely did a 180. And so I'm starting to think for these Marvel TV shows specifically, like, perhaps we don't have to have these grand, kind of big finale sort of fights at the end of every single, I guess, season finale. I think for the most part, these series, if I said this before, they don't need to have them. And I think maybe we could even save that for movies, to at least make movies feel a little bit more grander in comparison to the television shows, because right now they're kind of indistinguishable. And I think Marvel is still trying to figure out, okay, what series deserves a movie, or what character deserves a movie, and what character deserves a full series. I think Star Wars 2, that's a whole nother tangent, but like the Obi-Wan series, right? We just finished that, and at the end of the day, I was like, they dedicated way too much time to this story. We could have condensed that. But yeah, all that being said, I think, man, if we could just keep it kind of low and slow, just let it simmer in the series, and then maybe build up to something more grand in the movies, I think that would work. You don't just have to always be checking off those boxes just for the sake of it being, you know, a comic book series. So that's, I mean, I'm jumping the gun here because episode 6 hasn't come out. I'm just kind of preemptively seeing what, you know, could happen. But this episode I definitely did love. I told you guys I really love a good flashback episode, and so this one really pulled on my heartstrings because it you know, took us back to Aisha back in 1942, right when we see her escape from the cave, and we get a lot of answers in this, right? Like I said, we pretty much get answers to 90% of everything we ever want to know, right? We see that she escapes the cave. We see that she's kind of laying low. She's still got the bracelet and the bangle, and she's trying not to tell the rest of the clandestines. And then she eventually, you know, meets her soon-to-be partner, and then they have Nani, and so it was just a sweet narrative. And then all of that is just mixed into the drama of this whole other, you know, thing going on, which is the partition of the country. And, you know, they have essentially are dealing with, should we stay or should we flee? And so it was just such a compelling episode in that way. And I thought the story with Aisha was much longer. I looked it back because the episode is really 40 minutes and the part with the flashback is only 20, but to me it felt like the whole episode. And for the first time in a long time, I'm like, it felt long to me, but I was so sucked in. To me, that just was the perfect pacing. And heck, I even like the way they opened this episode. You know, we had the Marvel Studios opening, the classic one, and trying to kind of transitions into the old style. And then we've got the 4:3 aspect ratio. And then all of a sudden, you know, we're looking at one of those old-timey newsreels just to set the scene. I thought that was kind of like an excellent execution, again, just to set the scene, just to kind of show us what we're about to jump into. And then so eventually, right, we see the flashback happen, and then boom, we intercut with Kamala being thrown into it, and then we get answers about why she was being sent all these wacky, crazy visions. And I guess it's because she was meant to fulfill her destiny, and that destiny was saving her family and being the guide that her grandmother needed to make it back to her father. So it's like, without Kamala, you know, she would have no future family almost, or she would have no family in America. And so that really took me by surprise. And the one thing that stuck out to me was I was so hung up on Aisha disappearing, and it was almost like a red herring, right? They kept talking about, you know, she abandoned her family, she disappeared, she da-da-da-da. And it's like, well, she didn't disappear, she just straight up died. And it was like, it struck me the moment that I saw Najma around the train platform, and all came rushing to me like, oh, why didn't I think of that? Like, the moment I saw her, I was like, she's gonna kill her, isn't she? So I think I was kind of blindsided by the whole, like, again, I said her great grandmother disappeared. I guess no one stopped and considered to think that she just died. She was there in front of all those people, but it was so busy that really no one had time to tend to her anyway. The one thing that I did find funny was in episode 4, I was wondering if Kamala had some effect on her family. Now I specifically was like, I thought she had some kind of involvement in her grandmother disappearing. It wasn't necessarily that. She did have an effect on her future family, you know, being like a staple in that timeline to make the events of her timeline happen. But yeah, she had to help her grandmother find her way back home, and I think that was kind of effective. It might be a bit of a mind-boggling situation, you know, all these Back to the Future type scenarios and stuff like that, but hey, I think it was a story worth telling. And to me, I was just impressed by it all. I was also impressed that she did at least get to spend a little bit of time with her great grandmother, even though she was dying, and it was probably pretty traumatic, but that's besides the point. What I really wanted to say was, you know, I'm theorizing about this whole entire thing. You know, there's things that I got wrong, obviously, but this is one of those situations where I'm happy to be proven wrong, because it just kind of shows that, hey, this show wasn't so predictable. They've got a lot of fresh ideas to kind of constantly keep me on my toes. So I'm like, great. I would say this is high and mighty praise. This was some flawless storytelling. There might have been some holes that I've overlooked, but for the most part, I think that they did an excellent job telling this story, and I'm really appreciative of it. And of course, by the ending, you know, we just have this nice wrap up as well, right? Like, I was wondering if Kamala's mother would discover that she has powers, or that their family is magic. And I kind of like that they were just, the whole family, or at least the 3 generation of women, were like, you know, it is what it is. Sometimes we make mistakes. You know, I'm sorry, Kamala, that I, you know, doubted you. I know it was hard for you to do this kind of thing. And then for, you know, Nani, she was kind of like, hey, I know, I'm sorry that I told you all these wackadoodle ideas, even though she was right. But, you know, she wasn't coming off as bragging or anything about it. And then Ami was like, no, you know, I'm sorry, that was me, I should have listened to you. So they all kind of accepted, you know, part of the blame. And, you know, you just kind of figure out at the end of the day, like, hey, we all make mistakes, we all have miscommunications, we all think one way or all think another way. At the end of the day, we learned our lesson, so, you know, that's really all that matters. And they hugged it out. And seeing that last scene, I was like, oh my gosh, Aisha would be so proud to see your family. And oh my gosh. So I will say, for me, that was the real finale of Ms. Marvel, and what an awesome finale it was. Wow, amazing. It's so crazy that nothing else is gonna happen after that. Wow, such a great way to wrap up the series. I mean, in reality, yeah, we have one more episode to go, so I will just keep myself reserved until that time comes. And we'll see how episode 6 changes anything, or if it stays on pace. But it really makes me wonder, y'all, did the creators want, like, this, everything that happened in episode 5 to be the actual finale? You know, maybe they were going to incorporate some DODC stuff, but to me, this just feels like what they wanted. And again, we'll see what happens with episode 6. I don't know. So I think whatever the case, I'm not going to judge Ms. Marvel based on the finale if it tanks, because to me, it doesn't feel like it was supposed to be that way in the first place, but we will just have to wait and see. Anyway, folks, let me know what you thought about this episode in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Meanwhile, if you would like to hear my thoughts about Thor: Love and Thunder spoiler free, you're going to want to check out that review, or, you know, wait till you see it, then come back. But definitely go watch it, bookmark it, save it, come back to it. And anyway, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, subscribe for more Marvel, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Bye.